Thank you. I had an amazing childhood growing up. I was raised by a hardworking single mom, and on the weekends, she would take me to the hotel where she worked, and I got to play around, I got to swim in the pool, I got to eat some of that fancy hotel food. Mhm. Unfortunately, this wouldn't last forever. When I was about 7 years old, my mom sat me down, told me she was going to the UK for work. And at that age, I couldn't really comprehend what I was hearing. I was only 7, and I thought she was abandoning me, right? So it wasn't until I got to my mid-20s that I understood why she had left. She had migrated in search of a better life for both me and her. Right? Now, in my mid-20s, I was in a really bad place, financially, mentally. I was struggling with all sorts of things. I was battling all sorts of demons, and all I wanted to do was just leave this environment and start over. I had a neighbor who was working in Dubai at the time. He had known me ever since I was about like this tall. We met up during his vacation, and during the intervention, which it was, he introduced me to the idea of migration. So he had a stable income, he had savings in the bank, he took care of his mom, and he lived abroad. Basically, all the things that I wanted, right? So he urged me to try it out. So I did. The following week, we went to a recruitment agency that sends migrant workers to the Gulf. So that's Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, all those places. I was in no position to choose any jobs, as I hadn't really performed well in school. The only jobs available were minimum wage jobs. So we're talking construction, cleaning, security, domestic work, all those jobs, yeah? I said I'd take the first one that came, which happened to be security. The salary was $400. This was more money than I ever thought I'd earn, right? But I was supposed to pay a facilitation fee or a recruitment fee of about $1,200. Right? One, this was illegal, and two, this was a lot of money. Again, my mom came to the rescue, paid everything, and it was a sacrifice for her. She paid everything, and on January 2016, I flew out and told myself, I'm never coming back to Kenya. I'm never setting foot here. So I've worked in Qatar for about 4 years, give or take, under 2 different companies. So the first company, things were good. Wages, living conditions, working conditions, things were pretty much compliant with the law, right? Second company, however, was a complete opposite. So we arrive in Qatar, our passports are taken, which is illegal. The working hours, longer than stated in the contract. The living conditions, atrocious. We're talking 6, 8, 10, 12 people in one room, one tiny cramped room, right? We had bed bugs everywhere. We had mold on the walls everywhere, right? Atrocious living. Bathrooms and toilets were unsanitary. The food was appalling. Some people even got sick because of this company-provided food. So I decided to do something about it. Not because I was brave. It's because I'd had enough, right? There's only so much you can push a person. So for context, our company, security company, provided security for Mshereb downtown Doha. Mshereb downtown Doha is or was the flagship project of Mshereb Properties. Mshereb Properties is a subsidiary of Qatar Foundation. Qatar Foundation has this mandatory welfare standards that dictate living conditions, the working conditions, and even recruitment of migrant workers. So I did some digging and found that none of these standards were being implemented in our company, like where we were. So I decided to email Qatar Foundation, Mshereb Properties, the Ministry of Labor, and even the Ministry of Interior, right? But to no avail. It was never my intention to go public, right? It was never my intention to go public. But seeing as how none of these institutions actually managed to respond to our conditions and all that, I reached out to migrantrights.org, and they helped me write an article detailing our stories and the various injustices we faced. The article got a lot of traction, and almost immediately, our company was forced to implement some changes to living conditions, which was unprecedented. This never happens, right? Never happens. So light bulb moment. You mean to tell me that all I needed to do for things to change is just to write about it? Well, okay then. So Migrant Rights gave me a platform where I would blog on various topics, and I also had my Twitter and Instagram where I would post regularly. I would write articles and do social media posts about the kafala system, which is basically a sponsorship system that ties every aspect of your life to your employer, right? So the employer basically owns you, and I don't mean that lightly, like they own you, like a possession, like property, right? Domestic workers, they face the worst abuses, because they live under the employer's house, under the same roof. So passports are taken away, phones, their freedoms. If by some miracle they happen to make it to a police station to report their abuse, either one of two things can happen. They either get sent back to their owners again, where they face reprimand and retaliation and all those things, or they get taken to detention centers awaiting deportation because they have been reported as runaways or absconding, right? I also talked about separation from friends and family and the loneliness that comes with that, which, again, is never really talked about a lot. Discrimination based on race and gender, segregation, the failures of our own government and our own embassies, who are complicit in modern slavery and human trafficking. We want to point at Qatar this, Dubai that, Saudi Arabia this, but our own countries are complicit in all these things that we're going through. The lack of labor unions and collective bargaining, and working under brutal summer conditions. Now, for those of you who are not aware, it gets really hot in Qatar. I'm talking temperatures like 50 degrees plus, insane humidity, It's actually while raising awareness on heat stress that I was able to find out how prominent members of Qatari society were taking advantage of migrant workers. And I even wrote about it, And about a month later, on May 4th, 2021, I got arrested by the security services, They told me I wasn't entitled to legal counsel. They placed me in solitary confinement. It was 4 weeks of interrogation, blindfolds, handcuffs, disorientation. I was made to sign a document that basically said, in Arabic, mind you, that said I was receiving payments from foreign agents with the intent of spreading disinformation in the state of Qatar. So basically, I was being charged under the Espionage Act, which is a very serious thing to be charged under in this country, right? So, fortunately, my disappearance prompted international outcry. Students from Qatar Foundation, together with alumni, faculty, and staff, they wrote a letter calling for my freedom. Civil society groups stepped in and provided a lawyer, and through negotiations, the espionage charge was taken off the table. I still had to pay a very huge fine of $6,800, and then I was free to leave. Moving forward, we'd like to focus on reintegration of migrant workers back into society. After my ordeal, I was more than fortunate to have multiple organizations support me. I was welcomed at the airport. I was set up with a living arrangement. I was offered counseling. I even got consultancy with a certain NGO for like 6 months. So essentially, I landed on my feet. Most migrant workers don't have that. I have a vision of this center, a center for migrant workers' welfare, a center where other migrant workers who've gone through traumatic experiences could also be afforded the same courtesy, right? Refuge, medical care, mental health, financial support. Through partnerships with various institutions, we could offer training in various fields, various trades, so that they can become employed or become self-employed, self-reliant, empowered, so they can basically land on their feet as well. Right? It's not enough to write articles. It's not enough to write reports, tweet, hashtag, do this. It helps, but it's not enough, right? It's not enough to shoot documentaries. We must do more. Here's what more looks like. A plane ticket costs money. Living arrangements cost money. Medical, counseling, research, all these things cost money. We also have plans to build a shelter. We need funding for this. We need pro bono legal assistance. We need digital security support and tech support to be able to coordinate our operations. With such a system in place, with such a center in place, we show that there is hope for life after migration. Thank you.